two terms, degrees of freedom, we call it DOF, and constraints. Degree of freedom means the number of independent coordinates required to describe a system. Constraint are the number of any condition that reduces the number of degree of freedom. Basically, degree of freedom gives you an idea of the dynamics of the system, and constraint is the forces that restricts the dynamics of a system. Strictly speaking, these terms are not restricted to the domain of rigid body dynamics, but because we are discussing rigid body dynamics here, we will be taking care of the degrees of freedom of a rigid body. Constraint is something that we are not going to discuss right now, but later on when we will be discussing Lagrangian dynamics, we will have a very detailed discussion of types of constraints and how to remove the constraint forces, so on and so forth. So, right now let us focus on the dynamics of rigid body. So, degrees of freedom of a rigid body. So, this is what is our point of focus currently. Now, let us assume there is a rigid body. Rigid body is essentially a system of particle which has which will have, let us say, many number of particles in it, so many that we can, in most of the cases we do not have to count the number of particles, and we do not have to write this sum for different for example, center of mass is center of mass, the position of center of mass is defined as sum over I, mi Ri divided by m. Now, because this rigid body is a system of continuous masses, we can, instead of writing equations for discrete particles, we can take a density function and we can replace this integration by dm Ri, as we have seen that, and dm we can simply write rho dv, right. So, this is our rigid body. Now, if this is a rigid body and we want to calculate the number of degrees of freedom of this rigid body, if we go by the standard construction that each point needs 3 coordinates. So, n points, if we have n points in this rigid body which will need 3n number of coordinates, then it is wrong. We have discussed it already, and we cannot also use the number of constraints which are mutual distances between any 2 points in this rigid body, which is a fixed number. So, we cannot really use that to reduce this number of degrees of freedom. So, this particular construction of 3n minus nc2, nc2 being the number of such constraint conditions in a rigid body with n particles, this does not give the number of DOF. So, this is not right. Instead, in order to get the degree of freedom, let us do one thing. Let us assume, let us take 3 points in this rigid body. So, there are many points, we will just take 3 points A, B and C, which are not lying on a same line. That is very important, because it has to have, you know, if we take 3 points or as many as points on a straight line, this purpose will not be served. Now, let us first look into the motion of A. Assuming that A is a free, the entire rigid body is free, that means A is free to begin with. What are the number of degrees of freedom in A? As we have discussed, when we consider point masses, it does not have any rotational degree of freedom. So, there is no specific shape to it, it is just a point mass. So, we need 3 coordinates to specify its position. So, the degree of freedom of A is essentially 3. Now, if we fix this point in space, that means if we somehow pivot the rigid body by pivoting by putting an pivot at point A, how many degrees of freedom do we take from this whole system? Because we are fixing A and A has a degree of freedom 3. So, we take 3 degrees of freedom out of the system. Now, if the rigid body to begin with has n degrees of freedom, n is unknown at present, then moment we fix A, we are taking out 3 degrees of freedom out of it. Now, after we fix this particular point, what could be the possible motion of a rigid body? It can move with one point fixed. Now, let us consider the motion of B. Initially, it was free. Initially, it was free to move anywhere before we pivoted A, but right now, after we fixed point A, it can move anywhere on this, on a sphere of radius AB. So, we can draw a sphere. Sorry, my drawings are not very good, but anyway, I think you understand. Once A is fixed, B can move anywhere on the surface of this sphere. Now, in order to move, order to specify a point on a spherical surface, how many coordinates do we need? We need 2 coordinates, because what happens in the spherical polar representation, we have, let us say this is my x, y and z. For any point location, we need r, we need theta and we need phi. So, this is a general representation in spherical polar coordinate system. If we know that the point will stay on the surface of sphere of radius a, then we can, instead of, we can write r equal to a and we need only theta and phi, and that is generally true. So, if we, even if we do not engage a spherical polar coordinate system, we can go away with 2 numbers of coordinates. So, moment we fix point, so the degree of freedom of B is now 2. So, moment we fix this point as well, then we take some more degree of freedom away from the rigid body. Okay. Now, what is that? Once we fix B, how many degrees of freedom we take away? We take away 2 degrees of freedom. So, total number reduces to n minus 3 minus 2. Now, once we fix this point B, now this rigid body can move along. So, this sphere was an imaginary, I mean it was an imaginary sphere. So, we can get rid of this. Now, we have an axis AB. Now, this entire rigid body, it can move around that axis. For example, if this is my rigid body, if I put an axis, I mean if I fix 2 points, for example this point here and this point here, now it is free to rotate around this axis only, right. So, that means we have taken out 5 degrees of freedom already and it can move around this axis. Now, consider the motion of point C. Point C can move on a circle which is perpendicular to this axis AB and has a distance d, some fixed distance d from this axis. Now, in order to specify the motion of C, how many coordinates do we need? Consider this, we have a circle. I hope we understand that particle C can move only on this circle. So, a circle of fixed radius, that is also very important. This radius d, the small d whatever, this is fixed. So, we have a particle moving on a circle of fixed radius. How many coordinates do we need to specify its position at any instantaneous location? Let us say here or here, we just need one parameter, that is theta. This is theta 1 for this one, this is theta 2 for this position, this is theta 3. So, one coordinate or one parameter is sufficient to specify the position of C So, now if we fix C as well, how many degrees of freedom do I take away from the rigid body? One more. And now consider the case. In this rigid body we have 3 fixed points. Can the rigid body move anymore? No, right? If you fix 3 points in a rigid body, it cannot move anymore. You take this one, for example, you fix this point, it can move. If you fix the diagonally opposite point, it can move around this axis. Now you move a third point, that's it, it cannot go anywhere. That means once we fix point C, the total number of degree of freedom reduces to 0, and this equation tells us n is equal to 6. So, total number of degrees of freedom of a rigid body in general, okay, I am not considering any special shape of the rigid body, I am not considering any special property of the rigid body. For any general rigid body of any arbitrary shape, degree of freedom is 6. And also there is another very important consideration of minimum number of particles in a rigid body. Minimum number of particles that can constitute a rigid body is 3. By rigid body I mean it is not an one dimensional object. I have 2 point masses suspended by a thread or a massless stick, okay. So that is kind of a small dumbbell, okay, but it is a one dimensional object, it is not a 3 dimensional object, okay. But if we have a third point, let us say we have 2 masses, then this is a one dimensional object. We have a third point which is not in this line, we have a lamella, right. We have 3 point masses connected by massless threads or massless, sorry, not thread but massless rods, then this constitutes a rigid body. Reduce the number of particles from 3, it will not work. So, minimum number of n is equal to 3 to be considered as a rigid body, and that rigid body will have a degree of freedom 6, right. Now, with these 2 considerations, let us consider the motion, general motion of a rigid body. Now, general motion of a rigid body can have 2 components. We can have translation, we can have rotation, or we can have pure translation or pure rotation, or we can have a combination of both. Now, there are a couple of theorems that suggest that translational motion, general motion of a rigid body can be considered as a combination of translation and rotation. But let us first focus on the case when we have a rigid body with one point fixed in space. Now, let us look into this for a second. We have a very famous name on screen. This is the name of Leonhard Euler, a Swiss mathematical genius. So, he was a mathematician to begin with, which he had published enormous number of papers in different branches of mathematics. So, we have Euler's equations and Euler's theorems in almost every branch of analytical mathematics and also in physics. So, right now, we are not, I mean it is not possible to discuss the contribution of Euler in the framework of this course, but we will be referring to him many a times, especially when we will be discussing rigid body dynamics. We will have Euler's theorem of rotation, which we will take up very soon. Later on, we will see that there are Euler's equation for rigid body rotation, and we will also have Euler's angles. Now, later on, when we will move on to Lagrangian dynamics, we will have Euler's, there is a set of equations which are called Euler-Lagrange equation or Lagrange equation of second kind, which are also very important thing. Okay. So, right now we will be focusing mostly on Euler's theorem of rotation, which says in 3-dimensional space any displacement of a rigid body with one point fixed is equivalent to a single rotation about some axis that runs through the fixed point. Okay. Also, there is another theorem which is also very describes the dynamics of rigid body very well, that is Chasles theorem, that says the most general rigid body displacement in space, again we are talking about 3D space, can be produced by a translation along a line followed by a rotation about that line. Okay. So, when we are talking about these two theorems, we are strictly speaking we are not going to prove these theorems, okay. Especially the second theorem, we are not, I mean second theorem also we can have a proof, short proof, but still we are not going to have it in this class. If you have the textbook by Professor A.K. Roy Choudhury, there is a beautiful proof of Chasles' theorem there in the beginning pages of rigid body dynamics, which you can always go and have a look at. It's a very nice proof, few lines only, but that gives you a very good description. But what we do have is a brief description of what these theorems essentially tells us. Okay. Chasles' theorem tells you that general motion of rigid body, general motion means I mean both rotation and translation. So, let us say the bodies have some kind of a twisting motion and also it is moving in a particular direction. So, Chasles' theorem states that this movement, the general motion can always be reduced. So, let us say it is moving under some kind of an axis, okay, in this direction. So, it is evolving around this direction and moving in that direction. So, Chasles' theorem states that you can always find an equivalent picture where the body is essentially moving in the same direction as the rotation axis and executing a rotation, and of course, there will be a velocity component in the direction of this, the original direction of displacement, which can be treated separately. If you recall, the translation of a rigid body can be treated as if the entire mass is concentrated at the at some, let us say this is my center of mass, okay. So, what is the meaning of this is we can take this as the displacement of a rigid body and the remaining motion, which will be a motion in some direction towards this, can be taken as a pure displacement, and we do not need to consider the properties of a rigid body into it. We can just take it as if it is a point mass moving in some direction. Okay, so, it might be slightly confusing because the motions, they are kind of perpendicular to each other, it looks, but so let me draw it like this. So, let us say this is the general direction of motion and this is the general direction of rotation axis. So, this is the statement of Chasles' theorem. Now, Euler's theorem on the other hand does not talk about translation at all. It talks about the situation where a rigid body at one point in rigid body is already fixed, and it says that any general motion with one point fixed can be described as a rotation around an axis, arbitrary axis passing through that particular point. That means, let us say this is my rigid body and some point. Please do not confuse it with the center of mass. This fixed point need not be the center of mass. It could be center of mass as well, but it need not be the center of mass. Now, this is the statement of Chasles' theorem. Now, Euler's theorem states that if this point is fixed and the rigid body is executing random dynamics, that according to this theorem, that random dynamics at any instantaneous time point can be represented by a rotation around some axis which is going through this fixed point. Now, this axis is the direction of that axis can change very next moment. What I mean to say is, let us say at time t1 this is the direction, and if the motion is totally haphazard, random, then in the very next moment we will have an axis which is in this particular direction, but the rotation will be around that axis. In any other any of the following moments, we can have an axis, instantaneous axis of rotation moving pointing towards this direction, but still we will have a rotation around that. So, this is the statement of Euler's theorem. Now, there is a very nice mathematical proof which is also possible at your level, but for that we need to go into the details of orthogonal the orthogonal tensors and their properties. So, we are not going to do that during this class, but you can find proof of Euler's theorem in if you are interested, you can go through the details of orthogonal transformation in Goldstein, and there is a proof of Euler's theorem. So, this essentially means, this theorem means any arbitrary rotation of a rigid body will always leave one direction invariant. Okay. So, what it means is, for example, once again let us say this is my rigid body, it has one fixed point. Let us assume it has one fixed point and it is executing some random dynamics, random reorientation. Now, that reorientation according to this theorem means at least leave one point unaltered, one axis in that rigid body unaltered. Anyway, let us not go into that any further right now, maybe we will come back later. Now, what is important is we can always represent the dynamics of rigid body in terms of some sort of rotation around some sort of fixed axis. Now, that is very important, and for the rest of this discussion we will be focusing on the rotational dynamics of rigid body only. Now, total degree of freedom is 6 total, and out of that 3 goes in order to describe the translation. So, 3 for translation and 3 goes for rotation. And moment you fix one point in rigid body, this 3 translational degree of freedom is totally gone. So, we will be discussing cases where one point of the rigid body is always fixed. That means, we have purely rotational motion and we have to deal with only 3 degrees of freedom. And later on we will see that these 3 degrees of freedom are very good. So, that means we need 3 coordinates in general, and later on we will see that Euler's angles can serve as these 3 coordinates, and that will be very advantageous in certain aspects. But right now we will just discuss the general dynamics, rotational dynamics of rigid body. So, out of that 6, 3 we will never consider, we will consider only these 3, right. So, we will just change the topic from degree of freedom to rotation of rigid body with one point fixed. So, this is the brief description of what we are going to do now. Now, let us assume that we have one set of axes which is x prime, y prime and z prime, and we have some kind of a rigid body, and let us assume that the fixed point, so one point fixed, and the fixed point is always the origin. It is not, so this is something that we will be following throughout this chapter. Now, and you have guessed it right, because we are using x prime, y prime, z prime, these are fixed frames. Okay. So, this axis system is fixed. So, we must have, because we want to describe the rotation, we must have a set of axes which will be moving along with the rigid body, right. So, let us assume, okay, we have a different color, very good. So, let us assume we have z, x and y axis, and they are moving along with the rigid body, right. So, any vector any position vector of, let us say, ith point mass, which is given by r I and have a mass m I. This is rotating along with the so this position vector, if it is taken in this moving coordinate system, that means it is rotating along with the rigid body, and as the entire axis system of x, y and z, they are moving with the rigid body, during the motion r I does not change, right. And now onwards we will call this the space set of axis, and we will call this one as the body set of axis. Okay. So, this is also a nomenclature we will be following throughout this chapter. So, we have a space set of axes which are fixed in space given by x prime, y prime, z prime, and we have a body set of axes which are moving along with the body, which is given by x, y and z, and all the coordinates, all the coordinates on the velocities, they are with respect to this body set of axis. Now, because of that, we can write the velocity v I, okay, right, we will, or rather we will give this suffix s for space. So, if I want to calculate the velocity with respect to this of ith point, okay, with respect to this space set of axis, which is the inertial axis. So, it will have two components, one is v I body plus omega cross r I. Okay. So, these are all vectors. So, this equation looks very familiar, I guess, because this is the exact same equation we derived for moving coordinate system, and this body set of axis is the moving coordinate system of our interest. Now, as we are discussing rigid body, with rotation, this relative position of this point masses are not changing with time, because it is a rigid body, the relative position is fixed. So, that is why VIB is unanimously 0. So, V, which is the velocity as measured from a static frame or a space set of axis, is only omega cross r I, right, and r I is measured as body with respect to body set of axis. Now, what we will do now, we will simply drop these suffixes. Once we understand the scenario, we will simply drop these suffixes, and we will try to write the total angular momentum with respect to space set of axis. Okay. Now, total angular momentum with respect to space set of axis, we have already seen its sum over I, r I cross v I. Please remember, r I is the same, does not matter if we r I. So, if we measure r I with respect to a body set of axis or space set of axis, it remains the same, because it is a position vector and the origin of these two are common, right. So, we will see that m I can be written as r I cross omega cross r I, right. Now, this is a triple, I mean, it is a triple product of vector, and we can open this up in order to get some more insight. So, we will start here from the next class, and we will see what can be done. Thank you.